shift focus with me to
Yeah, right.
Ukraine. Okay, so we just elect President Trump and an historic mandate. I believe it's a historic mandate. Wins the popular vote, wins the electoral college vote. Clearly, people aren't digging what Biden is doing. And he's doing all this crazy shit, Bryan. Giving Zelensky long range ballistic missiles, giving Zelensky the green light to strike inside Russia, all sorts of bad. You texted me several days ago and were like, basically paraphrasing here, WTF. This could be really, really bad. And you told me back then, and I talked about it on the show more recently. Well, hey, look, if the Biden administration is green lighting Zelensky to hit Kursk or whatever it is inside Russia, well, North Korean troops are there. What if a couple thousand North Korean troops get hurt, killed, maybe? And sure enough, in the New York Post today, North Korean general wounded by a Ukrainian airstrike. And then you see Putin respond, first of all, by addressing his nation and the international community, uses intercontinental ballistic missiles in Ukraine that are nuclear capable. Thank God they weren't on the initial salvo. And then there are also unconfirmed reports of hypersonic missiles being used in Ukraine. And then I think a former Russian defense minister saying, well, we're actually at war with Great Britain now because they're helping. I mean, this is insane shit, Bryan. And things are escalating very, very quickly to a point where they could be disastrous. Yet, I swear to God, almost no one is talking about this in the media.
Well, they should be, because you're right. Whatever words we want to use, I think your expression of insane shit certainly matches the moment. Look, irrespective of the missile, people were talking about
So
it.
articulate,
It is, I've read a lot of intel cables. That's how they're titled. Insane shit in Ukraine. No, look, it's you're quite right to say. First of all, let's just pause for a moment and remember that Joe Biden has dementia. So our commander in chief is making these choices or decisions ostensibly, but really what that means is there are some puppeteers in D.C. or the National Security Council, the Pentagon, or the CIA. They're the ones who are really making this decision. So let's just kind of remember that for a moment. Now, whatever the missile might be, whether it's an ICBM or hearing that actually probably it might not be, it's more of a medium range ballistic missile. It's probably a hypersonic, which is not good because those are very, very excellent at evading missile defense systems like the Patriots and others. So it was a flex by the Kremlin to say, look, you want to escalate, we can do this, and we're going to use ammunition like this one, which had in its warhead, I think it was 6 warhead plus submunitions. So this was a no-joke missile based on an ICBM platform. You're right to say there. But the point is that it was a flex, and it gave him a chance to test this new missile. So it kind of offered multiple different benefits for Vladimir Putin and his military. So, yeah, the next time, could it have a nuke? Sure, and that was the point. That's what he was trying to do in flex. Now, you're right to point out earlier this week that we believe it was a British long-range missile. It wasn't one of ours that we just authorized on Sunday. It was one of the British missiles. The point is it hit at least 3 North Koreans. The very senior general that it hit, we're not quite sure who it is. We believe that it is the man who was sent to oversee the special forces, which tells me something very important. And that is that our intel, whether it be our what's called SIGINT or signals intelligence, phone calls, emails, or we have a human spy or human that's reporting that general was there at that spot, and that was then fed to the British, and then we hit this general with a very specific message to Pyongyang and dictator Kim Jong Un that we will target his people, his most senior people, and don't send any more. That's because Bloomberg and as others have reported this week that upwards of 100,000 North Korean troops are on the way. About 10,000 there now, upwards of actually probably closer to 20,000, 18, 20,000. We're not entirely certain. But the point is, many thousands are already there with upwards of 100,000 more to come. So this was a message then earlier this week by the Brits and us, because we are providing them the intel to target these people, clearly, to dictator Kim Jong Un, don't send any more, and we're going to keep killing your people. So here's what I take away from this week. So looking at the North Korean piece and the Russian piece, and obviously what the Ukrainians did with our munitions. The Russians responded with this recent missile in a very rational way. Now, we can and all should be a little bit nervous and anxious. I mean, I know, I think reasonably, if you put a piece of coal up somebody's backside, they'd have a diamond in about an hour based on the intensity of this moment. That's fair. But the point is that Vladimir Putin is still acting in a rational way. If you remember over the past 2 or 3 years, a lot of people said like, oh, he's crazy. No, he's
Yeah.
acting in a rational way. Doesn't mean we have to like him. Doesn't mean that we have to agree with what he's doing in Ukraine. But it is important to think about leadership and the extent to which they are being thoughtful with their nuclear arsenal and their conventional arsenal. That is not necessarily the case with Kim Jong Un. What we know about that man, and I can share this on openly, that is on an overt way, he is a lifelong alcoholic. He is deeply reliant on different prescription medications. He is a man who is prone to emotional outbursts. He just will cry for no particular reason. So the point is, this guy is not necessarily rational. So we send a message to Pyongyang by blowing up his, or trying to kill his general for his special forces, his most preeminent group of fighters. And what are we expecting him to do? Are we expecting him to act rationally? This matters because Kim Jong Un has over 100 nuclear warheads. He also has conventional artillery that is only dozens of miles from our troops in South Korea.
Exactly.
So the man can do things to us in return. So that's when we need to step back and ask, what in the hell are we doing in Ukraine? What's the bigger macro point here? Should we not want to move this towards a peaceful conclusion, which is what the American people considered? And they decided in the election that Donald Trump is saying, no, we want to move towards peace versus we are all in this with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden until the very bitter end, whatever the hell that means. So the American people spoke and they want a peace deal out of this, whether you like Putin or not. And yet the Biden White House is choosing to do this with missiles and landmines, by the way. Earlier this week, they deployed many, many thousands of anti-personnel landmines, which is quite something. So, yeah, the situation is escalating, which really then begs the question, well, then whoever is puppeteering Biden, why are they doing this? What are they hoping to do? Best case scenario, they're trying to give Zelensky as much turf as possible and hold the Russians off until the peace process starts off in January. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, they're trying to escalate this thing to the point of war that then justifies Western troops being deployed, which would mean American troops because the Europeans don't have it. So that's what they're trying to do, box out or Trump-proof Donald Trump's plans for peace in Ukraine.